Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me. My name is Dr. Keith McNally, and this is the Envision Speaker Series. And I want to get names right. It's Kirsteen
Yes,
Williamson-Quinn.
correct.
All right. And Rosemary Carminetti.
Carminati, close.
Carminati. Um, Forgive me, please, but I was really, really close. And so thank you. Thank you for joining me in conversation today on another episode of the Envision Speaker Series. We're going to do a deep dive in transition, but transition into retirement because a lot of people these days are screwing it up. And I'm hearing that more and more, and I'm not quite sure why, because there was a vision of retirement for a long, long time where people, that was kind of the final chapter where we're in the game of life. And literally there's a game called the game of life where you just go to retire. You go to this home and you hang out and you watch TV and you play golf and you do all those cool things. But what I'm hearing, and especially from the two of you, is that's really not the way to go about this. And so we're going to go into that conversation. Before we do, tell our audience who you are and what brings you to the table today, please.
Well, I'll go first. It's funny, Keith, you say all of the things that I say all the time about retirement. I've got a background of 30 plus years in corporate business to business sales. And what I saw, and I still see now, is people working their whole lives. And the ultimate goal, especially those last 5 or 6 years, I hear it from people I know. I can't wait till I retire. I'll be happy when I retire. You can almost see this neon sign of Shangri-La, heaven, retirement. And so what happened about 3 or 4 years ago, I took my programs that I teach and I started realizing that the people that were coming to me became my niche. Those are the people that I was attracting. Being that my age is 62, so I'm right in there with the crowd that I talk to. And what was happening is the disillusion, say that easily, dissatisfaction, anger, frustration, loneliness. And I'm here to spread the message. It's become compelling to me, to the point where that most people that know me know eventually the topic, if you open it up, you're probably going to hear a few things, and mostly of hope and inspiration. And I just feel that's very important to me for people to realize that don't listen to the naysayers, the people that say you've served your purpose, now step aside. We've got a lot more to accomplish.
Kirsteen, what brings you to this conversation?
Well, I left my corporate career of 32 years in finance 4 years ago. And just before I did that, I had a few bumps in my life. So my parents were both really ill. One was terminally ill, one had dementia, and I was battling with that and trying to hold down a big job at the same time, which I did do, but it was really uncomfortable. I lost my confidence, I lost myself. And that's when I realized that this happens, and lots of women in particular just carry on and think that they need to just keep going. And I realized at that point that I wanted to do something to help people get through in a different way. And so I set my business up and started working with people who lost their confidence and were going back into the workplace. But then my business has evolved, and now I work with people who are transitioning in any way. So whether that's retirement, whether that's setting up a new business, whether that's trying to get a new job or get a job if they've been made redundant, all of these things take very similar ingredients in how we approach them. And that's what I want to help people do. And I have a big drive to have more women in positions of power speaking up and making a positive impact in the world. That's what I want to help do too.
I love that. And so we're going to get into how both of you are managing that and really impacting the world around you. But before we get into that, Rosemary, I'll be happy when I retire. That's literally what came out of your mouth. Are you hearing people say that? I'll be
Oh
happy.
my
Is
gosh.
that suggesting that they're not happy now, or they're trying to find a place and a time in their life when I transition into happiness. That's kind of blowing my mind at this point. Can you talk to that?
Well, most of the people that say it aren't happy. They're
Okay.
going through they're going through the motions every day, and they really feel that all of a sudden, as soon as retirement happens, all the burdens are lifted, and now I don't have to answer to the man, and I don't have to do this and do that, and now I can relax and have fun. Instead of realizing, first of all, they should be addressing what's coming out of their mouth, that they have to wait to be happy. I mean, that's another thing I teach to non-retirees, to just about anybody. Why is it that we wait to be happy, conditioned upon our outer environment?
Mm.
Outer world follows inner world, and we have to find it here first. But yeah, a lot of people are not addressing their issues while they're working, or before they transition into anything from, leaving a job, a divorce, whatever. And they think, oh, once I get rid of that thing, whatever it is, lose the weight, get a divorce, and now I'll be happy. Well, let's start looking at what are the reasons why deep down inside you're not happy right now.
I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean, that's just really difficult to fathom that you're walking day and day and you're not happy. Kirsteen, do you see that in the people, the women specifically that you work with, that their emotional state is dependent on what's around them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some of that, and I can speak to my own experience, some of that was because I was going so fast that I didn't stop to actually realize what was going on internally for me. It's much easier sometimes to focus on what's going on externally, because if that's out of your control, then what can you do about it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I see that in people. I have a lot of people who come to me because they're in senior positions like I was. They're having to work very long hours. They have a lot of pressure, and their focus is on everything and everyone other than themselves. So when you start to get them to shift their focus onto themselves, that's when things can change. And they realize that actually they can create their own experiences. But until they put their attention on themselves, they can't see it. And I certainly couldn't. And I was fearful of stopping because I didn't know what would happen if I did. When I was at my most stressed because of what was going on with my parents, I thought, if I stop and even try and think about how I'm feeling, I might not get back up. And I've got lots to keep together here, so I just kept going. And that is not uncommon.
From both, and I know you're just nodding and wanting jumping in. So you jump in real quick because I've got to follow up with what's going on with our emotions. Go ahead.
Well, what Kirsteen was saying is so true. What happens is, to me, it seems so simple, but it's very hard work for someone to stop. First of all, if the cogs are running, and most of those folks were what I was for 30 years. I call that by me consciousness. I assumed that everything had to be done by me, and if I worked faster, and if I learned more, and I was more focused, and so on and so on. And instead, what I have learned through all of my personal development in the last 10 years or so, that I have let go of a lot of that, and I can live in through me, where I trust in not only my abilities and my instincts and my intuition, but I trust that I have surrounded myself with the people that are key, that are supportive, and I trust in it, be it my higher power too. There are so many things that people can let go of. But what I wanted to touch on, the simplicity of it, is to start by simply trying to figure out what makes you tick. What is it deep down inside that drives you, that gets you out of bed, that brings you joy, that makes you feel fulfilled, that gives you peace of mind? All of those things, if we stop before we retire, before we make those decisions, and just take the time to investigate exactly. I mean, it sounds, that's a very technical term, what makes us tick, but it's so true. I mean, and I do a lot of exercises to get to that point, but there are basic psychological needs that you can look at and digest, and then also dissect and address each one separately and decide which one do I really want to take more action on, which one do I need to put on the shelf and not put so much emphasis on.
So what makes us tick? Sometimes if you're asking a C-suite level individual, they may say their job, yes, but you're asking them to do or take a different journey, take a journey inward, take a
Into your
journey psychological,
psychological
emotional,
needs.
social
Yeah.
needs.
Yes.
That is a transition journey. And both of you work with people who are in transition or about to go into transition. Transition is difficult. It's scary. It's challenging. Sometimes it's even scarier than scary. It's frightening because we're going into the unknown. How do you help people deal with the unknown?
Rosemary, do you want to go first?
I was going to let you touch that since I just spoke.
I think when you're going through transition, you have to build certain capacities. And this is what I work with my clients on all the time. And it's the things that I worked on myself. So you have to build your capacity to deal with and cope with uncertainty. Because if it's weird how we expect to do something new and be really good at it, and things just don't work like that. So building your capacity to deal with uncertainty, deal with stress, increased stress, and be able to manage that and have techniques or things that you do to release some stress is really important. Helping people operate outside of their comfort zones and get used to that, because you know the saying, there's no growth if you stay in your comfort zone. And then
There's a lot of comfort if you're in your comfort zone.
Yes.
there is, but if you're transitioning in some way, you're going to be outside of your comfort zone. So you have to have a mindset that allows you to do that. And I think one of the most important things when you are in any transition is your relationship with setbacks and failure, because things do not always go to plan. I'm working with lots of people at the moment who have been made redundant and who are trying to get jobs. At the moment, trying to get a job is a roller coaster. The energy is up and down, and you feel like you're winning, and then within an hour you feel like you're losing. And so what we have to be able to do is deal with that, face into it instead of trying to avoid it and not take the steps. And also the most important thing is, when things go wrong, let's not make it mean something about ourselves personally. And women and girls, the studies show we are way more likely to make it mean something about us than boys and men. And then that stops us from continuing our journey. So these are the things that we need to be able to build when we're going through any transition. We need a mindset of progress, not perfection. And, I'm a recovering self-confessed perfectionist. I have to really work at shifting my attention to progress. That's a big deal. We have to look at the beliefs that we have about ourselves, because we can only go as far as we believe we can. And so a lot of the work I do with women is around self-concept, because that's a huge part of our success. So I work with beliefs. I work with building those skills and capacities that I mentioned. I help people create a pathway that they're not going to be able to see the whole way, but they're going to be able to see the next few steps and feel like they can take those steps. And then I think with anything that we're doing that's new, we need support. And women in particular struggle to ask for support because we have this mad idea, and I certainly did for a long time, that we should just be able to do this all on our own. And that's not true. The best people will get the best support around them. And Rosemary, you've already alluded to that. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my structure for helping people transition, whatever that transition is. And that's the approach I took myself in a higgledy-piggledy, unstructured way, because I was figuring it out as I transitioned from full-time employment and payday on the 23rd of every month to suddenly, holy moly, what the hell am I doing? How do I pay my mortgage?
And not piggledy-diggledy. I love that. I haven't heard that one before. And it's funny, what Kirsteen said, I incorporate a lot of that. But when I work with retirees, especially, when we dig down deep into their psychological needs, I can probably tell you 2 or 3 characteristics, and you will visually think of someone in your mind. Because when I talk about basic psychological needs, one of the ones that Kirsteen was talking about was certainty. Now, how many people live in a world where they feel like they need certainty? And what happens when they retire? That day-to-day job, that parking space, the same people they used to work with, the same tasks, the same responsibilities, and the paycheck at the end. And all of those things, after about 9 months, they're not filling in those gaps, and they're not certain of many things in their lives. And one thing I can tell you, what do they say? The only thing you can count on for certain, death and taxes. And certainty, if you have that deep need for certainty, you're setting yourself up for a life of stress. Because what stress is reality not meeting our expectations. And quite simply, most of us that are walking around, not me, most people that are walking around in a ball of stress is because they're wanting certainty for their actions. And how often have you put on you have a great interview for a job that doesn't come through. You put a bid on a house that doesn't come through. You have this wonderful person in your life that you think, okay, that's the one. You know what? Doesn't always work out. So the sooner we realize and lower those expectations and begin to trust, as I said, to start to trust in the people around us, in ourselves. And another feature, psychological drive that a lot of people have, especially I want to say males in our society, Keith, maybe not your age, but older, is the need for significance. Now, we all have a need for self, we all have a need for a sense of self. And I always encourage people to embrace their uniqueness, but some people take it to a level of self-importance. And what happens, those are the people that require the title. And those are the people that keep up with the Joneses and have the status. And they believe that their self-worth equals their net worth. And when they retire, if they haven't prepared, they go from, in their mind, king of the hill. They're used to people answering when they ask a question, and they're used to being introduced at the chamber meetings and all those wonderful things. And now in their mind, they went from somebody to nobody, and they're the same person as the one next to them on either side, schlepping groceries in Stop and Shop. And what that does to their ego, their self-esteem, they become feeling useless and no one cares whether I'm here or not. And those are the things that I talk to people about before they even think about retiring. These are things we should all think about. Is that something, are you getting inward validation from outward recognition?
Funny you say that, Rosemary, because when I left my corporate career, I had a good 6 to 12 months coaching around my identity. Because I'd been a position for so many years, a position that meant people did things for me. I had hundreds of people around me that took care of everything. And suddenly I'm little me an entrepreneur, all on my own, having to do my own inbox, booking my own things. I had no clue what I was doing. And I I I got on with it because I'd worked on myself and my identity and who I am and what I bring outside of a position, but I still had this need for significance, which is when I actually joined Polkadot and created the UK chapter, because I needed to have something bigger than me and my business. And I don't know if that's ego. I don't know what that is.
That's different than significance, honey. That is you wanting to contribute to the world, because that is another basic psychological needs, contribution. And for you, that's a strong one. It is for me too, that no matter what I'm doing for the rest of my life, I will always be trying to contribute to the betterment of others.
Yeah.
So given that we're talking about transition, do you specifically, both of you, talk to your clients about giving back, contributing to, impacting others? Is that part of the transition variable component strategy?
To me, it's huge. I've read enough research and known enough people that are highly successful and they don't enjoy true fulfillment until they give back. So we look at those things before they retire. As I said a couple of times already, there's going to be holes when you retire. If those things are filled while you're working, what's going to happen after you retire? You need to address them now and start to discover what are those other things. Maybe you're going to be mentoring. Maybe you're going to be teaching. There's going to be something, or maybe you're going to be directing a woman's connection organization. There's going to be something that's going to fill that gap for you psychologically. Because I truly believe in nature, that's why we're here on this earth. Growth and contribution.
I totally agree. And I think with my clients, a lot of them are in corporate, and women in corporate, my experience and the experience of many of the people I work with is it's very competitive. And giving back and sharing is not actually something that is meant and promoted genuinely, because it's so competitive. And I suppose what I'm describing is, if I take my career, I went through at least 12 structural changes where maybe there was 20 of us in a job and next month there would only be 15. So you're always looking at the people and thinking, who's losing their job? That doesn't encourage people contributing to each other, sharing with each other. It almost teaches people to shrink and protect. So one of the things that people crave is to find ways to do that, sometimes outside of a corporate world or through mentoring, and I help with that. But often I have people that are looking to edge out of corporate at some point, like I did, so that they can really make a difference, that they feel like they've got the capability to do, but they're not in the environment that allows it.
That's a good point. Because when they do retire and they get out of that environment, now they don't have the restrictions or the obligations, or and they can now have the freedom.
Rosemary, you said contribution is what, in your belief system, essential to the human being. We have to contribute to the lives of others.
Yes.
In your coaching consulting space that both of you are in, is that consistent? Like, do you actually see that as a basic human need, that we've got to make that impact, we've got to make that change? That's part of what the Envision Speaker Series is all about.
Yes. As I said, I believe in nature. When you don't contribute, you become obsolete. And when you don't grow, what happened? Because growth is another one of those psychological needs we all have, whether you want to admit it or not. Just like in all of nature, if we don't grow, we shrink, we atrophy, and we die. So what happens quite often in a transition or in retirement, people are thinking, okay, that's Shangri-La, good. I don't have to learn anything new. I can just relax. Or if they were like me and loved the daily learning and growth, and then all of a sudden the brakes come on and they start to feel there's no purpose, there's no excitement, there's no energy, vitality. And so I help folks determine, you might be a person like me that really needs growth and contribution, or you might be at a lesser level. But I know everyone needs to grow at some point. Even at 70, 80 years old, there's something they need to be doing intellectually, spiritually, emotionally to continue to grow.
Earlier, Kirsteen used a word, confidence. Going through transition is scary, and we talked about that. There has to be a point when that scary becomes confidence. When do we see that? And how does that actually grow into a person's persona, trajectory, whatever that looks like? When do you begin to see in your clients that they're more confident in the transition path? Can you speak to that?
So what I work with is the fact that we all have confidence. What we don't all know is how to tap into it. And, you know, I used to think that I was a confident person. And then when I lost my confidence, or thought I'd lost my confidence, I didn't know how to get it back. But all that had happened was I was disconnected from the whole of myself. Confidence is wholeness. It's you when you are taking care of all of you. And what I speak to with confidence is it's about knowing what you're really good at. So if you're transitioning, being able to stand in your own brilliance and say, right, these are the things that I can do really well. Now, this is something that I need help with because it's going to make this transition easier. So when I talk about wholeness, it's about being able to say, right, I'm brilliant at this, I'm not great at this, without shame, because we think we should be brilliant at everything, and that's just not possible. But being able to focus on what it is that you need to grow and getting that support to do it, that's confidence. It's not about being perfect.
And I agree. I get so excited because Kirsteen and I know each other on the side as well. And she and I have had so many conversations and we believe in so many of the same things. I agree with everything you said, and I would add that confidence is living authentically. Now, when you what you say and what you do is in congruence with how you feel, your values are in alignment with the way you lead your life. Confidence.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the best at anything. You are living your true self. And when you talk about peace of mind, that you don't question your decision making, you don't wait for perfection to take action. I like to say when you're confident, you become more of a participant and less of an observer in life. And with that is delving into what is your authentic self. What are you holding back on? What do you have limiting beliefs from younger days that were imposed on you or self-imposed? Do you have values that you have held on to that if you look at them and you say, I don't even know if I really believed that, but that's something my parents taught me, or that was something I hid behind because that was what you were supposed to do in school. And now I get to decide, how am I going to live my life every day?
It's
Go
for
ahead.
me, it's all of that, and it's, I suppose, what underpins all of that is the relationship that we have with ourselves.
Mhm.
So if we're authentic, like you say, Rosemary, if we don't have to think we're brilliant at everything, we don't have to love every part of us, but we don't hide anything in shame. We are who we are. and we bring that to what we do. And we don't beat up on ourselves. We have compassion for ourselves. We accept that things don't always go right. We know we're trying our best. One of the books I always recommend to my clients is The Four Agreements, because I think, you know, I don't know if you've heard of The Four Agreements. Okay.
You're going to share a little bit right now,
I
Don
can.
Miguel, oh,
but we're not
I've
going to go
lived the
deep
Four
dive.
Agreements for the last 30 years.
It's a brilliant, brilliant book. And I'll just share the Four Agreements very quickly. So be impeccable with your word. Don't assume. Don't take things personally, and always do your best. I think I got those right, Rosemary.
Yes. And one of my favorites is always do your best, besides being impeccable with your words, because I was taught your best is to strive for that A. And I always put myself, you know, I had to graduate summa and all that nonsense. And instead is your best at whatever condition you're in that day. So to accept that, you know, today my best is 90% of what I usually give because of my outside circumstances or the way I'm feeling. And that's okay. You give yourself grace and acceptance.
Yeah.
I like that. Grace and acceptance are good words to use when talking about transition. I know our audience is listening and they're thinking, they're talking about me. These two ladies are talking about me because I'm about to step into something that I'm not really sure of. I don't know how to think about it. I'm not really confident about it or myself. But our goal today, before we leave this conversation, is to give our audience a sense of hope. Please. How do we help our audience hope that things are going to be okay through this transition and maybe better than okay? How does that happen?
I think it's even stronger than hope. I think it's starting to trust and thinking about the things that you can trust in yourself as you embark on whatever transition you're about to make. And some of that is being able to look back and think about, how have I taken myself through all these things in my life that I have conquered, I've overcome, I've achieved, and think about the capacities, the skills, the strengths, the gifts that we have that we can trust in as we transition in whichever way we choose. Because when you can really connect with those, that's where your strength is. And I think that might be even a little bit stronger than hope.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I like to, I part of my identity statement is that I'm a distributor of hope. But I also believe that at any point in any transition in your life, you are able to reignite, reinvent yourself and your identity and reignite your purpose and your passion. And all of those things are 100% possible. I mean, I've met people that just really had hit the lowest of lows and thought, well, there's nothing left. I might as well count the days until it's my last day. And once we discover, again, get that spark back and look at the things, their strengths, their capabilities, and get rid of, well, for me, you first have to get rid of the old, the nonsense that we're carrying. So many of us have those albatross, the ankle weights, the things that are keeping us from living to our fullest potential. So once we start taking some of those things off, shedding that, then we can start putting on some of that new clothing we want to wear, those new labels, that new identity, something that we're proud of, something that, again, gives us peace of mind because we're living authentically. I've seen too many people that money is not their issue. They have the insurance, they have everything that they have in place, and yet they're miserable in retirement. And it has become almost epidemic in our country, Keith. I can't speak for the UK, but I can say the amount of people that are living unfulfilled lives. And it doesn't have to be that way. I usually, when I do a talk, I'll end with something like, we still have mountains to climb and monuments to build and lives to change in our 60s, 70s, 80s. And it's only up to us to choose whether we're capable of it or not.
Most
Well, I
definitely.
know I've got a mountain to climb, but that's my own thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Kirsteen?
Well, I think Rosemary said it all. I think have hope, have trust, have a vision, start investing in who you are as a person, because she or he will take you where you want to go if you treat her well.
Then as a final thought in our conversation, I want the two of you to give our audience something. So not just say, hey, contact me, I can help you, but give them a to do something as a result of this conversation. When this conversation is over, I want them to think about something and do something to help them transition. What would that something be?
I've got an easy one. Number one, I challenge anyone, if you've had a spark of something that triggered you and you said, that makes sense. Don't let this be what I call data fillata or shelf help. Those things that people hear these things, they write notes, they go to seminars, and they never take action on it. So if anything, if you're thinking of a transition, look at whatever it is you're transitioning from, a job, a career, a marriage, and look at the things you love about it. What are those things that you're really passionate and you love about it? And then imagine 5 years from now, 2 years from now, when you have transitioned from that, what are you going to be doing to fill in those gaps? Let's plan for that now. Let's think about that now. See, since I'm a retirement reinvention expansion, I like to say retirement expansion specialist, I'm speaking specifically of retirement. If you love parts of your job, you're going to be missing that when you're done. So why not think about that now? And Kirsteen, I'll let you talk on the other transitions.
So I think we both said, Rosemary, that taking care of the inside first is going to allow us to do whatever it is that we need to do. So what I would encourage everyone to do is take 2 minutes and check in with yourself. And I don't mean just ask yourself, in your head, how are you? I'm okay. I mean, sit in stillness for a little while and really connect with yourself and ask yourself what you're feeling and ask yourself what you need, because we never do that unless we are focused and someone's told us to. We spend all our time asking everybody else how they are and what they need. Check in with yourself, because you need to take care of you to get wherever it is you're going to go. 2 minutes, that's all it takes. And you'll be amazed at what your body tells you if you can really check in with your intuition, that your head won't. Your head won't tell you what your gut will.
I love it. I don't think there's any better way of ending this conversation. I want to thank the two of you for joining me on the Envision Speaker Series. For those of you who are out there watching, listening, I'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.